each December 25th, we have a tradition at the Abbey where we all read the entire text of Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Deeds. And it's a beautiful thing to do, and we all get in the meditation hall, and we all have a text, and then we read it silently at our own speed, and we're articulating the words. We're not just reading it silently, we're actually, articulating the words, and that gives a different connection to the text in my experience. And so given the fact that there's a room full of monastics, some are guests, and we have lay people here too, there were two verses that I thought to share today that I think apply to our situation right now. So as a Buddhist, whether we're a lay practitioner or a monastic, obviously our thoughts, our actions, our words, they matter. They matter karmically, but they matter when we're interacting with other people. And especially as a monastic, we stand out like a neon sign. There's no mistaking that we've chosen to do something. Some people don't know what we've chosen to do, but I think the robes suggest that we're some kind of spiritual practitioner. And so in my experience, when I didn't know about the robes, I had expectations of people who looked religious. And we can deeply impact people by our actions when we're dressed in robes. So in chapter 5, there's two verses that came to mind. Chapter 31 is, I am ever dwelling in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are always endowed with unobstructed vision. So it's good that we have an awareness that we're surrounded by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And they're not just, in some other universe. They're not just a visualization, although that may be your experience right now. But I think it's really helpful to just even entertain the idea, just to entertain it, that all of space is filled with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And when I have that in my mind, then I feel inspired to really pay attention to what I'm doing. And of course, I get overwhelmed with afflictions, and I lose that awareness, and I make mistakes all the time. But that is my goal every day. And then by trying to do, be a good person, then we're avoiding the natural tendency in my mind, which is to be a jerk. And I don't want to be a jerk in all moments. I want to be someone who's approachable. And thinking that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are here, observing us, can really impact then our behavior. And from the King of Prayers, there's that beautiful verse that also is this description of what we can try for. On every atom are Buddhas, numberless as atoms, each amidst a host of bodhisattvas, and I'm confident the sphere of all phenomena is entirely filled with Buddhas in this way. So it takes time to grow confidence and conviction that we're surrounded by Buddhas and bodhisattvas, and that's certainly my case. But now it gives me some comfort, and it gives me comfort even in the moments where I might start to head towards thinking, well, I'm feeling a little bit lonely. There's no need to feel lonely when you have that idea running. And of course, they're there witnessing everything that's going on in my mind, my mistakes, the grief I'm feeling, the moments that I create virtue, I'll say moments, the attempts to purify, the attempts to be of benefit, when I'm overwhelmed with afflictions, all of that, they see it. And that's very inspiring for me, that they see it. And that inspires me to be authentic. But I can't see the holy beings, obviously. I can visualize them, but then I lose the visualization throughout the day, and I lose even thinking about them. But I can see my spiritual mentors. And that inspires the same kind of effort to really care about what I'm doing and how I'm interacting with others. And the bottom line here is that I do care about what the wise ones think. I really do. At the same time, in that kind of care about thinking what the wise ones think, that could easily get polluted. And I really don't want that to ever happen, where I'm maybe pretending to be something that I'm not. I'm putting on some kind of show because the spiritual mentors are watching, perhaps. And that is really That's something I have great aversion for. And it's the same thing with that interacting with anyone. I really want to be authentic. And I want to be, down to earth and approachable. At the same time, we could spend our entire lives being caught up with that one pair of 8 worldly concerns where we're attached to what people think about us, praise and blame, having aversion to criticism and all that. And that could drive me for the rest of my life. We did that when we were teenagers, I think. Maybe all of us did. We did that in our 20s. I probably did it in my 30s. I probably still do it in moments. But that is such a huge waste of time. A few months ago, there was a guest here, and she shared openly. It wasn't even during the discussion group, and it was so perfect. I thought, wow, you really nailed it. And she said, I know that I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm okay with that. And I thought, right on. I feel the same way. I know 8 billion people who, there's no chance everyone can like me. And I'm okay with that. Because I have the same struggles with other people. I'm totally okay with that. But that does not give me carte blanche to be just a total jerk and act however I want, because I don't care what you think about me. I care about what the wise ones think, and I care about how my behavior is in relation to all of you. And we've all had the experience of, trying to be of benefit, saying some comforting words, trying to help someone in a difficult situation, and it's totally what they don't want to hear, and it's perceived as harm. So again, I cannot control how other people respond to what I do and say. I can't control it. That's their job. My job is to take care of my mind. Then verse 32. By thinking in this way, I shall mindfully develop a sense of integrity, respect, and awareness of danger. Also, through doing this, recollection of the Buddhas will repeatedly occur. So when I think about my teachers and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who have all worked so hard for how many countless eons, learning the teachings, integrating them into their life, teaching us, then the only way to repay that kind of kindness is to try and practice what they have been teaching us and to integrate it into my own life. And in that way, that develops a sense of integrity, I think. In Geshe Sopa's commentary on the Lam Rim in Volume 1, he says this: for any student, a proper teacher is the cause for even the slightest improvement, from the development of one single virtuous quality or the elimination of one single fault, right up to attaining highest bliss. Your teacher is the first one to lead you in the proper direction. So when, thoughts of arrogance come up, and of course they do when I think I might know something, this is a fantastic antidote that anything that I do that's virtuous goes back to my spiritual teacher. And so I want to act properly in repaying that kindness. And also I don't want to destroy the faith in other people. And you can destroy the faith in others even as a lay person. But again, when you're wearing robes, it's much easier to do because we're more of a focal object. And so people are watching us. They're watching us carefully. And we also know that people who have titles, people who are famous, they have ruined the faith of others. And we've seen the disasters that have come out of that. And that's certainly something I don't want to ever do in this life or any future life. And we also want to act carefully, though, without being self-conscious and being a fake person. Because that is read by others in a moment, in a heartbeat. People can see that so easily. So I'll give you 2 examples of how we are all aware of how we need to behave and think and act when we're in public. And one example, there's so many, but one example, and it was really fun, was when the first COVID vaccine became available, and we all piled into cars and we headed into town to Newport. And there were all these people at different stations set up to offer this vaccine. And there were search and rescue people from different counties. There were nurses. There were people from the insurance company in town. There were all kinds of people from all over the place. And everyone was so happy. And when they saw us, these carloads of maroon-robed people, they were thrilled. And of course, some of them knew about the Abbey, but many of them didn't. They had no clue. And they were just delighted to know that there was an Abbey in their county or close to their town. And so that was a very positive time of interacting with them. And then all of us are very aware that, there's so many subcontractors at the Abbey these days for the past year. And for many of these, they're all men. I think I've seen one woman. I saw one woman on the concrete pour. But the rest of them are all men. And so we're our first contact with Buddhist monastics. And I can remember the very first day when this one group of men were up and we're looking at the land that was going to be excavated. This one guy came up to me and he said, and he wasn't kidding, he said, "You going to try and convert us?" And I said, "Actually, no, that's not what we do. But if you're ever interested and you have some questions, we'd be happy to try and answer them." And he just sort of went, Anyway, he was the only one. The rest of the people are very, very willing to engage with us. They're usually smiling when we smile at them. And maybe I'll tell you about 2 interactions I've had recently. And it was the last day of the stucco team. And we've been talking to these fellows since the very beginning last year when they started. And so this one fellow was saying that he was so happy to do this job and that they were very proud to make it a good-looking job for the Abbey and that we were happy with it and they were thrilled about that. And then he said, "And I learned a lot." And so I said, "Well, what did you learn?" And he said, "Well, I learned how to be kind and how to smile." And I said, "Oh, come on, you know how to do that already." And he said, "No, really. On the other jobs, we're just grumpy and we don't smile. And nobody talks to us either." So that was one example. And then the most recent example, there was one fellow, I have to admit, now I'll show my ignorance and my bias and my partiality, but I was afraid of this one worker. He didn't even have a big beard. I was just afraid of him, and I just sort of kept my distance, and every now and then, I'd walk by him and smile, but he never smiled back, so I thought, okay. But it was about 2 weeks ago, and he was finishing up his part of the work, and I was complimenting on how complicated it was and how creative they had to be with all of this duct work, and it looked really great, and he was so happy to hear this. And he said, "Well, thanks. I didn't think you'd really care or notice the duct work." And I said, "Well, there it is. It's going to be covered up soon." And that was kind of that. And then I was outside looking at a place where they were digging again. They had covered it up, but they were digging it again. And I was just standing there taking pictures of the digging. And this fellow came out of the building, and he came right over to me, and he said, "I have a really stupid question." And I said, my teacher thing, my elementary school teacher's response is, "Well, there's no stupid question." He said, "When my mother died, she had this image of a Buddha the Buddha has a great big belly and he's laughing. And I don't see any of those Buddhas around here. And so is this the same kind of Buddha?" And so we talked about differences in culture and things like that. And he told me that his brother was really angry with him for taking that Buddha. He should have just given it to the pawn shop and gotten rid of it. But he has this Buddha in his home. And so it's just amazing. You never know who might be ready. So then I thought, what have I got to lose here? I said, "Well, would you like to see more Buddhas?" He said, "Yeah." So I took him into the meditation hall, and he was truly interested. And he was asking me questions about the different Buddhas and the Tonkas on the wall. And so, we never know who's ready. And we never know, now I really know, that I usually miss the mark with people all the time. Let's give people a benefit of the doubt. He's not a scary person. I had built that up in my mind. So, I'm going to read those 2 verses again. "By thinking in this way, that I am ever dwelling in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, who are always endowed with unobstructed vision, I shall mindfully develop a sense of integrity, respect, and awareness of danger. Also, through doing this, recollection of the Buddha will repeatedly occur. Let's get those Buddhas occurring in our mind and our heart.